The big news over the last couple of days has been these supposed emails that have been released by what is essentially the Trump campaign in order to attack Joe Biden and his son, Hunter. Now, it should be noted that, of course, that I don't take a side in this situation because both of them are manifestations of the same capitalist, imperialist, neoliberal global force. So it really doesn't matter to me whether or not one is attacked over the other. But for the sake of journalism, what does matter is what's true and what's not. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be doing my job. Now, it was Wednesday morning that the New York Post came out with this like smoking gun mail that showed supposedly Hunter Biden communicating with Ukrainian officials about meeting with his father, Joe Biden, when he was the vice president. There's a lot of problems with this so-called revelation or so-called evidence. There's a lot of logical inconsistencies within it, as well as general things that you would notice if you were doing an investigation. Now, they allege that on April 17th, 2015, the New York Post claims that Posharsky thanked Hunter Biden for inviting him to D.C. and giving him an opportunity to meet his father and spend some time together, adding it was a real honor and a pleasure. Well, so the wealthy elite around the world are all connected in some way or another, and they were all certainly connected when they all wanted Jeffrey Epstein to disappear. That's just one example. But come on, all the rich all know each other, even if they are in competition. So this doesn't mean anything. I mean, how many Russian oligarchs does Trump know? Does that mean Russia stole the election? Of course not. That's just how business is done. If you're not schmoozing and making connections, then you're literally not doing your job as a businessman. So I don't think that this really means anything. I mean, if this is of significance, then why aren't these same conservatives outraged about the connections between the Bush family and the Saudi royal family? I mean, how long has that been an issue? And that is, according to a lot of research, maybe a plausible explanation for the Iraq War, which murdered 1.5 million people. Oh, Hunter Biden got a gas contract by family connections or coercion, and that's the bloody end of the world. And what about the Bush family doing the same thing, getting 1.5 million people killed? Bit of a double standard there, but in the end, what does it really matter? They all know each other anyway. So I think it's not really all that relevant. And one of the major questions is, how are these emails uncovered? And how did the New York Post actually get a hold of them? My job is to investigate these kinds of things. I mean, I'm supposed to be a journalist here. If I wasn't investigating them, then I wouldn't be doing my job. Whether or not I like the candidate who's being attacked, or whether I even care if they're being attacked or not. Now, the Business Insider did do a bunch of research. They actually found the guy who discovered the emails. His name was John Paul Mac Isaac. He's the one who claims to have gotten the computer with the information on it. He said he got a water-damaged laptop. Doesn't know who it was that found it. The person never revealed their identity, and they never paid for the repairs, which is already strange enough as it is. It should be noted that he's an avid Trump supporter, and then when he was questioned by various media organizations about his revelations, he had trouble keeping together the timeline about events that was laid out in the story that was given by the New York Post. Now, the owner of the repair shop said he wasn't even sure the laptop belonged to Hunter Biden, but that the machine had a sticker from the Beau Biden Foundation. So they're not even really 100% sure that this laptop even came from the Beau Biden Foundation. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that it is. Now, the story says that the person dropped off a water-damaged laptop and never paid for the service or retrieved it, or a hard drive which the contents were found on, according to the shop owner, who said he repeatedly tried to contact the client. That's awfully strange. I mean, even, okay, maybe he does know who he is and he's trying to contact him, but the guy with the sensitive information, very sensitive information, if we are to believe that it's true, wouldn't come back for the laptop. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, the New York Post also learned of the emails last month through Steve Bannon. The guy was really close to Trump, basically a neo-Nazi, and he says he got them through Rudy Giuliani, Trump's personal lawyer. If you have evidence of a crime, if you have evidence of a crime committed against you, shouldn't you be turning that over to the FBI? I mean, you can ask for exploration in any kind of case, but I mean, why would you do that? Why, if you are a third party, you find this sensitive information and then you give it to Trump's lawyer rather than, say, the FBI, or even at the same time, why would you even bother giving it to Trump's lawyer? Shouldn't it just go straight to the FBI? Now, the shop's owner then contacted the federal authorities with the laptop, and the article says that it has a photo that has a federal court subpoena showing the FBI seized the computer hard drive in December. That's an awfully long time ago. Now, it's not clear whether the Bureau subpoenaed the hard drive at the repair shop's owner's volunteered information after they volunteered the existence of the hard drive to them. Now, the FBI was contacted by multiple publications for comment, and they haven't immediately responded. Does the FBI not know if they put out a subpoena or not? I mean, there is a paper trail of these things. They could easily confirm or deny whether or not a subpoena actually exists. The fact that they're not forthcoming with that information is suspicious in itself. That could be suspicious against them or suspicious for them. In either case, it is suspicious. That really should have been answered. Now, Thomas Rid, he's a guy who knows about these kinds of things, about computer forensics, etc. Now, he said the emails featured in the Post story were published as images rather than file format, meaning just pictures of them rather than offering the files themselves, which he says makes it harder to analyze and verify the files. Now, it's strange that the New York Post wouldn't do that. It would add much more proof of what they're saying than having just screenshots. And I think it's very, one of the things that strikes me very strange about it is that when you look at the images, the icon for the account, I believe it was a Google account, was kind of faded. It was kind of pixelated, but the text was crystal clear, which leads me to believe one or the other was photoshopped in. Again, I'm not a computer forensic expert, but that does look very suspicious to me, and that's something that a lot of YouTubers use to attack other ones, faking emails and personal messages. So I have seen that inconsistently come up before, that inconsistency appearing before in other cases. Now, every little individual fact, every email, every detail mentioned in the email must be verified when the data has surfaced in such a suspicious way. This is a suspicious way to bring it forward. And because of that, you would want to do even more investigation to make sure that what you were giving was true, not just one, say, a photo. It appears, according to Rid, that the New York Post did not do that. They did not do the amount of due diligence that they should have in trying to determine the authenticity of these emails. Instead, it seems like they were ideologically motivated to just print this without properly investigating it. And from that, you could say they probably already knew that they were faked, etc. But you could make that accusation. You couldn't prove it. But you could understand why people would get it in their head that that kind of accusation would be legitimate. Now, the finder, that the guy who actually got these things, said that when he has been questioned about it, he couldn't get his story straight about the timeline of events. It was in the Daily Beast. Through the interview, Mac Isaac switched back and forth, saying he reached out to law enforcement after viewing the files in the laptop, to saying that it was actually the FBI that contacted him. Well, which is it? Did you contact the FBI, or did the FBI contact you? That should be fairly easy to remember. And the fact that he has kept mixing up this fact is suspicious in and of itself. Now, at one point, Mac Isaac claimed that he was emailing someone from the FBI about the laptop. At another point, he claimed a special agent from the Baltimore office had contacted him after he alerted the FBI to the device's existence. At another point, he said the FBI reached out to him for help accessing the drive. Why would the FBI need a computer repair shop guy to access a hard drive? I'm pretty sure they've got their own experts who can do things like that, that they wouldn't need a common shop owner in order to do that. Now, the emails allege in 2015, Posharsky thanked Hunter for inviting him to Washington, D.C. to meet with Joe Biden. But there's no evidence Posharsky ever actually met Biden. Now, that may or may not be true. And I think even if he did meet him, how is that even significant? I mean, come on. We know that the ruling elite are always making connections within various governments to get deals and stuff like that. I mean, the history of defense contractors and foreign governments goes... defense manufacturers, weapons, bombs, etc., all that kind of thing, that's a very long-standing issue altogether. So these kind of connections are actually very common, and we don't even know if this connection even really existed or not. So I would say, given all of this, there's significant reason to think that these emails might be faked. Now, in the end, do I think it even matters? Do I think it even matters? No. Even if we just assume all this corruption is true, how would that make him any different than any president that's already been in office? How would that really make him any different than Trump? I mean, Trump is crooked to a degree that Hunter Biden could only wish that he was. Does whether or not this being true change the nature of the capitalist system? Does it change the nature of imperialism? No. The system remains the same. This is more of an argument that one capitalist is getting over another, and they want to hurt them for doing that because they're mad that they didn't have that connection. So when it comes to things like that between different individual capitals, really couldn't care about either one of them. When I said investigating the truth is what's important, when you are going to be like me and come out here and say that this is... that if I'm going to do a news video on it, I have to do my due diligence. I do have to investigate it. And that's the point. And this is such a big story. There's no way I could reasonably just ignore it. I mean, it's just too big. Now, the other issue with this is the censorship of the story that has been going around, primarily Twitter and Facebook. Now, that is a whole huge problem altogether. Question of whether or not this should be censored. Now, if it's legitimately a falsehood that's being spread in order to slander a candidate, you can understand why efforts would be put in order to censor it. If it were true, you could also understand why there'd be efforts put out to censor it. And that's really the question of censorship under capitalism. Is this really something that we should demand be released to the public even though it's false? Or at least, in my opinion, from my investigation, I believe it to be false. That's really the question. How do you determine truth? I think that's really the question here. Everybody believes in censorship in some form or another. Nobody is a complete absolutist in terms of freedom of speech. If they are, they're probably a closet P word, because there are photographs of certain individuals that are underage that should not be allowed under any system. And if you're okay with that, I think there's something to be questioned about you. But that's besides the point. The point is everybody believes in censorship to some degree or another. But how do you really determine the truth? I think that's the major question here. I'm sure if somebody deliberately put out false information to destroy the Soviet Union, they should be censored. But how do you really prove that it's false? And even if you can prove it's false, is there going to be people who still believe it's true anyway? And they'll see that as censorship and see that as a wrong committed against them. Censorship is a very difficult situation. It's not always very clear cut, where you have the U.S. come in with an organization like the National Endowment for Democracy releasing tons of information specifically for the purpose of undermining a government in another country. I mean, that's very obvious. You should censor the hell out of them. But I'm just saying it's a little bit more difficult when we're dealing with a contradiction between capitals within America. Does supporting that censorship really help? Or does not supporting it help? It's very easy to just say, oh yeah, I just believe in freedom of speech. They should say whatever they want. Because I think that that's just too simple of an answer. You could make all kinds of arguments one way or another. And being someone who does, at least claim to be a journalist, I want access to information so that I can analyze it, so that I can investigate it, and then broadcast it. Well, if it's completely censored and I can't see it, and I can't get to it, I can't make that determination for myself. I can't investigate it if I can't get the information. So I think that's a very difficult different situation altogether. So that's my thoughts on this whole Hunter Biden situation. I'm of the opinion that this information is faked. These emails are faked, but that in the end, it doesn't inherently change anything whether or not it's true. The system remains the same. The problem remains the same. Imperialism remains the same. And the need to end the capitalist system most certainly remains the same. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.